Hello again. I cannot help but notice that whenever I visit a museum these days, I see things which strike me as very odd. A perfect instance of this occurred yesterday when I popped into the Welcome collection near Euston Station to see how they were managing after the destruction of the major part of their collection last year, when a woman called Melanie Keane was put in charge of the place. She is both black and an arts professional, which meant that a lot of what was on show either offended her or was beyond her comprehension. I say this because, as somebody with experience in art, she was not the ideal person to manage a museum dedicated to science and medicine. The whole permanent exhibition at Wellcome, which traced the history of medicine, was simply closed down in a terrible act of vandalism. One thing the new director took exception to was a painting of a white missionary doctor treating a black African. Disgraceful. In fact, there was so much racism and ableism that she thought it better just to chuck out everything and start from year zero, just as they did in Cambodia under Pol Pot. I thought that I would visit the place yesterday to see what kind of things they had on show after getting rid of the stuff which actually related to science and medicine. The exhibition I visited opened a couple of days ago and is running until next April for those that wish to see it. I give a link to the thing in the description to this video. A quick flick through the guide produced to it, which I have here, confirmed my fears, for it is written in that peculiar jargon so beloved of those working in the arts. Part of the display consists of a film in which a black drag artist talks about his hobby, or perhaps I should say his job, because he seems to make a living out of it. In the film, he reads out a long poem in what is, I suppose, a kind of elegiac rap ode to cross-dressing. You can see the fellow here. Have patience. For reasons which I can only guess, he has a beard, which makes his drag performance look a little odd. Not, I hasten to add, that I am any judge of such matters. Let me read from this booklet what is said about these artistic performances. Either through their own lived experiences or in combination with collaborative consultation, the artists each question long-standing constructs and initiate new conversations. They explore the joy of self-expression against racial and gender norms, the long roads to self-knowledge and self-acceptance, and the complications of existing in our increasingly digital world today. Together they triumphantly mark the beauty that lives in us individually and correct and collectively. Mm. Now, as somebody who makes a living out of stringing words together to produce books and magazine articles, I'm bound to say that this sounds to me like a lot of fancy expressions strung together more or less at random to produce a piece of meaningless prose. All the with it and fashionable phrases, lived experiences, constructs, initiating new conversations, racial and gender norms, and all the rest of it. The only problem is it doesn't actually mean anything. This booklet, this guide to the exhibition, is full of that kind of thing. Listen to this. Driven by an innate desire, we tend to believe the myth of an eternal hierarchy of beauty, despite its evolving nature. Notions of physical attractiveness shift, but our pursuit of them remains constant. I literally do not know what this means. I will freely confess that my own writing is not exactly brilliant. I mean, I'm not likely to be in line for a Nobel Prize anytime soon. But I fancy people know what I'm saying and can understand what I'm saying too. From being a medical museum full of facts relating to science, the Wellcome collection has now turned into somewhere where vague and woolly opinions are offered, couched in the language of art and psychotherapy. Almost everything in that exhibition related to race and gender, and nothing at all to objective fact. At one time, one could visit the Wellcome and trace the history of surgery through the ages or the use of antibiotics. But the highlight of the exhibition I saw yesterday was the amputated breasts, preserved in a jar of alcohol, of a woman who had had a sex change operation. This is a general trend in museums today in Britain, which are often seen now less as places where history or science may be explored, and more somewhere to teach visitors about the latest fads and fancies of trans activism or the Black Lives Matter movement. 25 years ago, at the Wellcome collection, they operated sessions for children there, where the kids could use microscopes and other scientific instruments, and they even had workshops where they could extract DNA. All that has been abandoned in favour of a heap of stuff relating to sex changes and racism.